Hidden in the Appalachian hills of southern West Virginia sits a place where laughter of children once rang through the trees, a place where cotton candy mixed with coal dust and joy spun like a carousel in motion. But what happens when the joy dies and the land remembers what came before? This is no ordinary abandoned amusement park. This is Lake Shawnee, and its secrets has dark ones, bloody ones, cursed ones, some say. It looks like the perfect backdrop for a horror film. In many ways, it is. But what sets Lake Shawnee apart isn't just the twisted metal and ghost stories. It's the truth beneath it all. Because before this was a playground, it was a graveyard. Before there were rides, there were raids. Before the screams of joy came screams of war. Over the next hour, we're diving deep into Native American history, into colonial bloodshed, into unexplained deaths, into modern-day haunting that defied logic, and into the very question, can land itself be cursed? If you're new here, please hit the subscribe. If you're watching at night, maybe keep the lights on. This is the story of Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, and once you hear it, you may never drive through southern West Virginia the same again. Long before anyone sold cotton candy or spun on the Ferris wheel, this land bore witness to something ancient, something violent. We're going back to 1775, the land we now call Mercer County, West Virginia. Was this part of an untamed western frontier? Native American tribes, including the Shawnee, had lived in this land for centuries. They hunted the forest, fished the rivers, and buried their dead near the waters of what would later become Lake Shawnee. But the westward push of European settlers would soon bring war. In 1775, a Revolutionary War veteran named Mitchell Clay claimed a tract of land that was then Western Virginia. He built a homestead for his wife and their 14 children. It was a rugged life, filled with farming, trapping, and the constant threat of attack. The Shawnee, rightly seeing settlers as invaders on sacred land, fought to protect their territory. By 1783, tensions boiled over. While Mitchell Clay was away on a hunting trip, a group of Shawnee warriors attacked the Clay home. 3 of his children were targeted in what would become a legendary and bloody tale. Bartley Clay, his teenage son, was killed in a field while working. Tabitha, his young daughter, was stabbed as she tried to save her brother. And Ezekiel, another son, was captured and was taken north to a Shawnee village in Ohio. He would later be buried alive at the stake in a public ceremony. When Mitchell returned and found his children slain or kidnapped, he was consumed by rage. With the help of a local militia, he launched a retaliatory raid. He, along with others, would kill many of the Shawnee tribe. What was left behind was not just grief, not just blood, but a violent spiritual fracture that some believe, would remain in the soil itself. Locals say this is where the curse began. This wasn't just a tragic event. This was a desecration, and that's a key word. Because you see, desecration doesn't just affect the living. It stirs the dead. Later, when archaeologists began digging near the site of the park, they would find artifacts, pottery, arrowheads, ceremonial tools, and skeletal remains of what are believed to be native children buried in sacred ritual positions. That discovery wasn't a surprise to locals. They had always known something here was off. In 1926, nearly 150 years after the Clay family massacre, a man named Conley T. Snido had a vision. He saw opportunity in the very same land others whispered about. West Virginia was booming with coal, bringing with it thousands of families, hard-labored, and children in desperate need of recreation. Snido purchased the land and opened what would become known as Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. The idea? Simple joy. The park had a hand-cranked Ferris wheel, a swing ride shaped like a giant circle of chains, a water slide, concession stands serving hot dogs and candy apples, picnic shelters under oak trees, a man-made swimming pond, and at the center, families from coal towns who rarely got to escape the grind. The park was humble, but it meant something. To the children of the region, it was magic. But underneath that laughter, something waited. As early as the 1920s, strange occurrences started resurfacing. Visitors reported strange voices in the trees. Electrical equipment malfunctioned during clear skies. One ride operator claimed the swings moved before anyone touched them. Of course, it was the 1920s. No one believed in ghosts when the economy was booming, and so they brushed it off. They kept riding, they kept swimming, they kept laughing. Until the deaths began. There were places where death feels like an accident, and there are places where it feels inevitable. At Lake Shawnee, death came quietly, in pieces, and often tragically involving children. One of the major incidents occurred in the 1930s. A young boy, believed to be between 6 and 8 years old, was swimming alone in the pond when he disappeared beneath the surface. Witnesses said he was there, and then he wasn't. Divers recovered his body later that day, but no official reason was ever given for his drowning. No splash, no cry for help. It was like he simply sank. Some claim the lake is, quote, heavy water, filled with an underground spring in sharp drops. Others believe it's something entirely different. Then came the death that everyone remembers. In the early 1950s, a little girl named Emmeline, a name etched in local legend, was riding the circular swing set. It was a beautiful day, and her mother was watching. As the swing spun faster, a delivery truck backed in to drop off supplies. The driver didn't see the ride. The ride operator didn't see the truck. The two collided, brutally. Emmeline was struck, launched from the seat, and killed instantly. Her death made headlines. The park was shut down for several weeks. Flowers were left near the swing, and that's when the haunting took on a new dimension. Guests began reporting sightings of a young girl in pink ruffled dress walking near the swings. She never spoke, she never initiated, but she was there again and again. And then she vanished. Some claimed she left behind the scent of cotton candy. Others swore she was missing her doll, and they could hear her crying for it. There were other deaths too, many undocumented, whispering among locals. A boy who choked on his food and died in the concession line. A teenage found crushed beneath the collapsed ride structure. A toddler who wandered off and was never found, some say into the woods. Most of these stories never made it into official reports. After all, this was rural Appalachia in the 1940s and 50s. Paperwork didn't always follow tragedy. But by the time the 1960s rolled in, attendance was dwindling. Families had more options, maintenance costs went up, and the stories, well, they never went away. In 1966, Lake Shawnee shuts its doors. Some say the park simply couldn't compete. Others say the land was rejecting the joy. For 20 years, Lake Shawnee sat silent. The rides rusted, the water stagnated, grass grew thick where children once ran barefoot. Locals told ghost stories, sure, but no one expected the park to open again. Until a man named Gaylord White changed that. In the early 1980s, White, a former coal miner, purchased the land with plans to bring it back to life. He wanted to build a small, family-friendly park for the community, just like the old days. He saw charm in the overgrowth and nostalgia in the decay. And for a time, the revival seemed promising. White cleared brush. He restored a few rides. He even rebuilt the Ferris wheel. But almost immediately, something felt wrong. Workers complained of tools vanishing only to reappear days later in impossible places. Construction crews said they felt like they were being watched, always. One man said he was pushed up the ladder by something he couldn't see. But then came the final straw. Not a ghost story, not a legend. Something real, something buried. In the late 1990s, White gave permission for Marshall University archaeologists to survey a portion of the property near the old swing ride. What they discovered changed everything. 13 skeletons were found, most of them children. Alongside the remains were ceremonial items, stone tools, clay vessels. The positioning of the bodies suggested intentional, ritualistic burial, consistent with Shawnee tribal customs. This wasn't just a graveyard. This was sacred, indigenous burial ground. He had just built the amusement park. He had desecrated a spiritual resting place, the exact kind of act that many believe anchors a curse. Archaeologists included the burial site likely dated back to the 1500s or earlier, long before Mitchell Clay or white settlers ever arrived. This discovery confirmed that locals had whispered for generations this land was never empty. It was never just for fun. The findings were so disturbing that White shut the park down permanently. No more rides, no more families, no more attempts to defy the land. He left most of it standing, almost like a twisted shrine to everything that went wrong. After the bones were found, the park took on a second life, not for children, but for ghost hunters. The stories exploded online. TV shows like Scariest Places on Earth, Ghost Lab, and Most Terrifying Places in America featured Shawnee Lake. Paranormal teams from across the world visited. YouTubers, TikTokers, and thrill seekers make their pilgrimage to Shawnee Lake. The swing set, visitors report seeing a little girl in a pink dress. The swing moving on its own, sometimes violently, even on windless days. Audible, giggling in the distance, though the park is deserted. EVP clips, she's here, don't swing, I want my doll. Some say Emmyline never left, she died here, and she's still playing. Shadow figures spotted just beneath the surface, like something pacing the bottom. Some have reported the sound of bubbling or whispering coming from the lake at night. That once it took the life of that first boy, it never gave him back. It watches. A place where we're forced to remember how greed replaces reverence, how joy was built on bones, and how sometimes the land remembers more than we do. Whatever your stance, one thing is certain. Lake Shawnee is no ordinary ruin. It is history, it is trauma, and some believe it is still awake. We've walked through blood and we've spun through joy. We've stood among the dead. Lake Shawnee's park isn't just a ghost story. It's a warning about forgetting the past and ignoring sacred land, about pushing fun where it doesn't belong, and about the heavy price of building dreams on graves. As of today, the park remains closed to the public except during special events and private tours. But its story continues to ripple through time, one swing, one whisper, one shadow at a time. Maybe you'll visit, maybe you won't, but if you do, remember this. Not every ride should be reopened, not every child's laughter is living, and not every story has an ending. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this deep dive, hit the like button and to subscribe for more unsettling stories from real history. Have you been to Lake Shawnee? Drop your experience in the comments below.